Hello and welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Srinivas V. Padigar, former professor and chairman of the Department of Ancient Indian History and Epigraphy, Karnataka University, Dharwad. In this session, we are considering the module on architecture and art of the Hoysalas. This forms a part of the paper Art and Architecture of India. In this module, we will have the following objectives. First is to look at the background of the Hoysala temple architecture and art. Second is consideration of medium of construction and its impact on temples. Third one is principal temple forms and plans of the Hoysala temples. Fourth one is the sculptural art associated with Hoysala temples. Let us begin with the background of Hoysala architecture and art. So far as the political history of the Hoysalas is considered, we must begin stating that they were a very significant feudatories of the Chalukyas of Kalyana. They ruled from about 1000 to 1346 AD. Their kingdom consisted of a large region south of the Tungabhadra in Karnataka. Beginning with Tripakama, they grew highly powerful in the southern part of Karnataka so as to challenge the Chalukyas of Kalyana, their overlords. Sosevur, modern Angadi, in Chikmagalur region was their home, but they made Belur their first capital and later Halebid or Dwarasamudra. They have made rich contribution to Karnataka culture by patronizing religion, literature and art. They are immortalized by the innumerable temples in different styles and exceptionally delicate carvings found on them. Significant rulers of the Hoysala dynasty include Ballala I, who ruled from 1100 to 1108. He was the first to attempt for independence of the dynasty from the Chalukyas. Vishnuvardhana, who ruled from 1108 to 1152, continued the efforts for independence. He expelled the Cholas from Talakadu and made the southern Mysore part his kingdom. Ballala II, who ruled from 1173 to 1220, countered the Yadavas of Devagiri and restricted them to the region north of the Tungabhadra. Other significant rulers of this dynasty were Narsimha III, who ruled from 1253 to 1292, Ballala III, who ruled from 1292 to 1342 and tried to evade the menace of Delhi Sultanate invasions. The Hoysalas were finally removed from the political scene by the foundation of the Vijayanagara kingdom in 1336. Let us now consider the various aspects of the Hoysala temple styles. The Hoysalas built numerous temples in distinct styles. The typical examples of different phases of their rule consist of Belur Chanakeshwara temple built in 1117, Halebid Hoysaleshwara temple completed in 1220 and Somanathapura Keshava temple built in 1268. There were many other temples built by them. Let us consider the various characteristics of the temples built by the Hoysalas. Firstly, the medium. Hoysalas have made use of soft soapstone for majority of temples. Granite has been occasionally used, as in the case of Talakadu and Tonnanur. For larger temples like the Belur Channakeshava, they built superstructure of brick and mortar. Let us consider the plans of the Hoysala temples. The royal temples have very distinct characteristics. In plan, they vary from 1 to 5 sancta temples. Single shrined or Ekakuta, triple shrined or Trikuta, and quadruple shrined Chatushkuta, and 5 sancta shrines or Panchakuta are found. Many temples have stellate vimanas, 8 or 16 angled. You see in front of you two of the examples of the plans of the Hoysala temples. One Ekakuta or single sanctum temple, another Trikuta or triple sancta temple. In the second one, you will see three sancta arranged around a common hall. Stellate plan is another feature of many of the Hoysala temples. Some of the temples are built on a stellate plan of 8 points, some others, or a majority of them, stellate plan of 16 points. Those with 8 points are called Padma plans, and those with 16 points are called Mahapadma plans. You can see here a 8-point stellate plan as represented in the Sadashiva temple at Nuggehalli. In this one, which represents the plan of the Chanakeshwara temple at Velur, you see a single-shrined temple with 16-point star for its external plan. Let us consider the various temple forms built under the Hoysalas. Three principal forms are met with. The first one is Karnataka Dravida, the second one is Bhumija, and the third one is Karnataka Vamsana. The external characteristics of the Hoysala temples are as follows. The temples are built on a raised Jagati platform. The Pitha or Adhisthana has horizontal bands called pattis or tharas, which are decorated with series of elephants, horses, soldiers, narratives from Ramayana, Mahabharata and Bhagavata, hamsas, creepers arranged one above the other, and so on. The wall, also called Jangha, is divided into two parts by a chadya. The lower part is decorated with sculpture of divinities under trees, etc. Another chadya concludes the wall, succeeded by hara or similar elements. The superstructure is missing in some cases, obviously because of use of brick and mortar. Here you can see the picture of Hoysaleshwara temple at Halebit. The Jagati platform and the horizontal bands are shown by arrow mark. This is the detail of the Adhisthana, where you will find a series of bands, horizontal bands, each one distinctly carved with a kind of sculptural series. For example, in this case, you have the elephants, horses, hamsas, and so on and so forth. One of the bands actually has the narrative reliefs drawn from Mahabharata or Ramayana. Let us consider the details of the Karnataka Dravida form of temple built under the Hoysalas. The picture shows you the various components of a Karnataka Dravida temple built by the Hoysalas. These are clearly demarcated on the picture. There is a Pitha or Adhisthana or basement. There is a Jangha or the wall part. There is a Shikhara or superstructure. And the crowning parts of this are Ghanta and Kalasha. There is a Shukanasa also, which is invariably found in Karnataka Dravida temples built by the Hoysalas. There are sub-components which are clearly demarcated by showing arrow marks and mentioning their names. Though Hoysala temples are well known for delicate carvings on them, there are some temples which are having very simple appearance. For example, this one, an example from Shravanabelagola, is Akkana Basadi, a Jaina temple. It was built in 1181 AD under Ballala II. It represents Karnataka Dravida form, all right, but you can observe the simplicity of this temple so far as the wall details are concerned. Walls look almost monotonous except for the presence of the offsets and the Kudyastambhas which frame these offsets. The Adhisthana is clearly of Karnataka Dravida order. The superstructure actually rises in stories, and each story is distinguished by the presence of horror or parapet. This is another example of a Hoysala temple which is simple, particularly on its wall. This temple is from Belavadi. Here is an example of a very ornately decorated Hoysala temple of Karnataka Dravida form. It is the Vucheshwara temple at Koravangala, built in 1173. It can be described as built in mixed Hoysala idiom in the sense that though the details are in Dravida form, there are certain features which relate it with Nagara. For example, on the walls you will find turrets of Northern order or Nagara order and Bhumija order. So this kind of a mixture is found on some of the Hoysala Karnataka Dravida temples. This is the famous Hoysaleshwara temple at Halebid, which was founded by Vishnuvardhana and completed by Ballala II. It is one of the most ornate temples of the Hoysalas, with two important shrines, hence it may be described as a Dvikuta temple. It has a very long hall in the interior, and the exterior walls are very well decorated with sculptures. The Adhisthana or the Pita part, as described earlier, have the tharas or bands of various animals, Ramayana and Mahabharata scenes, and so on. This is the detail of the tharas or pattis of the Adhisthana of the Hoysaleshwara temple at Halebid. Some of the more common temples of the Hoysalas are built on a Trikuta plan. They have three sancta arranged around a common hall. In this case, the Keshava temple at Somanathapura is shown. It was built in 1268 AD. The temple is actually having Dravida details, but each of the sancta is stellate planned. This shows one of the stellate planned sanctums of the Somanathapura Keshava temple. We can see some carvings of the models of temples on the walls of these temples. One of the models shown here represents a Karnataka Dravida temple almost in full detail, right from the plinth to the kalasha or the finial. But the interesting part is that this is done on a 8-point star. So, left to themselves, the Hoysala artists would have created stellate temples with 8-point star, even in Karnataka Dravida model. This is one of the sculptures on the Somanathapura Keshava temple. Such sculptures are found in large numbers covering the whole wall body of the temples. Let us now consider the next temple form, namely Rekhanagara Ekanda or Latina temples. We must note that though the Hoysala artists were aware of the northern Indian style temples, no temple built in that style has survived as witness today. But the fact that they knew these forms is shown by the representations in miniature form on the walls of the Hoysala temples. This one is a model of the Latina temple shown on the Channakeshava temple at Belur. Let us come to the Karnataka Bhumija Prasadas. The Bhumija Prasadas originated in the Malava region in central part of India. But soon the temple form spread to other regions. A number of temples were built by the Yadavas of Devagiri, and the Hoysalas also attempted some temples in the Bhumija style. One of the famous Bhumija temples of the Hoysalas is the Channakeshwar temple at Belur, built in 1116. You can see the plan of this temple, which is based on a 16-point star with a large hall with number of pillars inside, some large and some small. The front part of the hall is re-entrant cornered. The outer line shows the Jagati outline. There are small Devakoshtas, almost done in the manner of full-fledged shrines on the east, north and south sides of the sanctum. Interiorly also there are 3 cells for the sanctum. You can see how the temple looks like from behind. One of the important features of a Bhumija temple is the detailing of the wall in the form of heavy pillars. You can see those pillars on the walls here. These pillars on their parapet carried the miniature Nagara Kutas. Though the superstructure of the Belur Channakeshwar temple is not seen now, a photograph taken in 1850s survives, and in this the whole temple along with its superstructure is visible. You can see here that photograph. In this photograph you will see the rising superstructure in several stories. Each of the stories marked by horizontally placed Nagara Kutas, and there is a vertical band called Latam which holds the Shikhara together up to the top. The fact that the Channakeshwar temple was built in Bhumija style is also demonstrated by several small shrine models found around this temple. You are seeing in front of you a couple of those small shrines with Bhumija Shikharas. They will give an idea of how Bhumija Shikharas were done. This is another Bhumija Prasada temple built by the Hoysalas in Turuvekere. It is called Mule Shankara temple. It's a temple of 13th century, and it represents one of the forms of the Bhumija style. In the Vastu text, we have as many as 25 forms of Bhumija, and each of them has a name. The names differ on the basis of the plan as well as on the basis of the number of stories and the details in which the superstructure is shown. So here the plan is one based on a square with offsets on the 3 sides. This is another temple which originally would have had a Bhumija Shikhara. This temple, known as Soumyakeshwar temple, comes from Nagamangala and is designed in the 13th century. We can make out that its original superstructure was Bhumija on the basis of the way the Adhisthana or the Pitha and the wall are treated. They are treated like pillars. The superstructure which you notice on the temple was a reconstruction done during the Wadayar period. It is in Dravida manner. It does not suit to the original plan and detail of the temple. This is one more example of a Bhumija temple built by the Hoysalas. This is a star-shaped plan with 8 points. The number of stories you notice in the superstructure is 3. The temple is called the Sadashiva temple and is found in Nuggehalli. This is the plan of the temple. There is an interesting temple known as Ishwara temple at Arsikere. It was built around 1220 AD. Though in detail it looks like a Dravida temple, the way in which the plinth and the wall and the superstructure are treated, it appears to be one of the subtypes of the Bhumija Prasadas. The components are Dravida, and among the various types listed in the Samarangana Sutra, Sutradhara, we have a couple of forms which say that the temple should have Dravida karma, or that it should be treated like a Dravida temple. This one seems to fulfill that requirement. Let us now consider the last of the temple forms of the Hoysalas, namely the Famsana temple. One of the best examples of the Famsana temples of the Hoysala period is found in Doddagadavalli. It is known as Lakshmi Devi temple. It was built in 1113. It is a temple with 4 sancta, hence may be described as Chatushkuta. It has certain interesting aspects to reveal. You can see one of the shrines of the Lakshmi Devi temple at Doddagadavalli in this particular slide. What you have to notice here is that it is not treated as a Famsana Prasada in entirety, but it has certain mixed features. The following things are the Dravida features in this particular shrine. Kudyasthambas, or the small pilasters which you see on the walls. Stamba Panjara, or the treatment of a turret model on a pillar on the recesses. Then Koshta Panjara, the niche-like formations done by pairs of pillars with turrets over them. Then the Dravida Pitha, which is very, very significant here. Thus, this Famsana temple is a mixture of Dravida and Famsana features. This is an interesting depiction on the wall of the Keshava temple at Somanathapura. It actually depicts a Famsana temple, but it seems to be based on a 8-point star plan. Thus, left to themselves, perhaps the Hoysala architects would have built a Famsana temple on 8-point star plan. With this background of the temples, let us consider the sculptural art of the temples of the Hoysalas. One of the most important features of the Hoysala temples is their carvings. Delicate carvings are the hallmark of Hoysala art. The pitha of major temples are divided into horizontal bands depicting series of animals, birds, scenes from Bhagavata, Ramayana and Mahabharata. You can see here the Belur Chanakeshava temple plinth, where you see bands representing series of elephants, series of lions and series of horse. The exterior wall sculptures are also interesting. Exteriors of walls are often covered with relief images of divinities and epic and Puranic themes. In this picture, we see the depiction of Vishnuvardhana himself on the temple at Belur. These are the wall sculptures of Keshava temple at Somanathapura, 1268. Various divinities are represented on the wall. This is a representation of a form of Shiva called Gajasamhara Murti. In this, he is shown as dancing over the elephant head, which represents a demon named Gajasura. This sculpture comes from Halebid. This is another sculpture found at Belur. It represents the fight of Bhima with Bhagadatta's elephant. You can see Bhima thrown up by the elephant of Bhagadatta. This shows you another sculpture from the wall of the Belur Chanakeshava temple. Here it is interesting to note that the sculpture of Vishnu is placed against a pillar which carries a Latina turret over it. Then there are sanctum images which are also noteworthy. The sanctum images of deities are a feast to the eyes. You can see here a couple of images from the Somanathapur Keshava temple representing Vishnu and Venugopala. The door frames of the Hoysala temples are also noteworthy. These door frames are carved very delicately. You can see here the door frame of the vestibule of the Chanakeshava temple at Belur. Such lintels, elaborately carved, are known as Chitra Torana. Similarly, the pillars of the Hoysala temples are also of various forms and they have delicately carved sculptures. These pillars are of different forms. Mainly, these pillars are of different forms. Many of them are lathe turned or multiple angled or delicately decorated. You will see here the interior of the hall of the Chanakeshava temple at Belur, which has a number of different forms of pillars. One of the pillars in the Belur Chanakeshava temple is carved with the sculpture of Mohini. It is considered to be a masterpiece in Hoysala sculpture. This is a detail on another pillar of the same temple wherein Ravana lifting Kailasa is shown. The ceilings of the Hoysala temples also are very well decorated. They are of a number of varieties. They are exquisitely and meticulously carved. Here you can see some of the examples taken from the Keshava temple at Somanathapuram. Some more ceilings from the same temple. Each of them differs from the other. Shalabanjikas, the bracket figures, are the most important feature of major temples of the Hoysalas. Belur and Halebid temples are known for the most beautiful Shalabanjikas in various modes, playing on musical instruments, dancing, acting, etc. These are depicted as bracket figures. Here are some examples of Shalabanjikas seen in the Hoysala temples. Some more examples of the Shalabanjikas. These are some of the bracket figures. One of them is a Shalabanjika, but the other depicts a chauri bearing Shalabanjika. The other depicts a couple playing on musical instruments. Let us summarize our study in this module. The Hoysala temples are the most ornamental in South India. They present a logical end to the development of temple architecture and art of the Karnataka, begun by the Chalukyas of Badami. So far as plans are considered, there are single sanctum, triple sancta, multiple sancta, square-based or stellate, 8-point, 16-point stars found. So far as the forms of the temples are considered, there are of Karnataka Dravida, Karnataka Bhumija, Karnataka Vamsana, and of mixed idioms. The temples are exquisitely and delicately decorated with carvings on door frames, ceilings, pillars, plinths, walls, etc. The figural sculpture is dominant in Hoysala art. Apart from wall sculptures, the Shalabanjikas are the most impressive component of Hoysala sculptural art. We have tried to give you a brief picture of Hoysala art and architecture in this module. More details will be found in the e-text supplied to you. You can also refer to the books which are mentioned separately as the sources.